maybe getting...
You can't always.
This is the death toll.
Remarkably
Turn back towards God. Rise up.
Hey there, welcome to Found by Shalom World. I'm your host from Ireland, Katie Ascough. Found is a show about conversion stories, so we get to hear about people's most intimate and personal experiences of God. And maybe this is something you can relate to on your own journey of faith, or maybe it's something you can be inspired by as you figure out what you believe about God and the universe. Today we get to speak with Anna Carter. She co-founded something called Eden Invitation, which is a ministry for those experiencing same-sex attraction and gender discord in the church. Anna's an incredible person. She's someone who's clearly struggled with really real issues, yet she's chosen God's freedom and God's plan for her life. And she doesn't stop there either. She now spends her every day helping others on a similar journey lead integrated Catholic lives. Hope you enjoy. Anna, you're so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie.
Where are you joining us from today?
So I am in our little home office. All of the Eden Invitation team works from home. So I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wonderful. Very cold at the moment, or?
About the 20s, 20 degrees Fahrenheit. I realize a lot of you are probably
Fahrenheit, yeah. I'm in Ireland, so I don't know, that's below freezing anyway. Very cold, very cold.
It is.
So Anna, just to start, I guess we want to hear your life story. So can you just take us from the top? Who is Anna Carter?
Who is Anna Carter? Big question. A little bit about me. I'm born and raised in the Midwest in the United States, Minnesota, Wisconsin area, and was raised Catholic my whole life. And started in high school, started experiencing attraction to the same sex. And that really affected a lot of just my inner life in a lot of ways. I had a deep devotion to the Lord. I had encountered him in Eucharistic adoration as a teenager and knew that I wanted to give him my life, but didn't always know how to reconcile this other aspect of what I was feeling, what I was experiencing. But I just kind of kept going, and it's a long journey to get to where I am today. But I don't know, that's just a little bit about me and a little bit of how I ended up on this show.
Yeah, well, I was reading your blog post and I love how you put it. You said you fell in love with Jesus first and you had this experience with the Eucharist. You called it the falling in love. So can you talk to us about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as young people, really as everybody, but especially as young people, I think you're disposed to falling in love, right? In some ways, right? You want to be swept up, right? You want to be seen. You want to be received. You want to be understood. I mean, talk about basic human needs, right? And I had the opportunity to be involved in kind of a youth group when I was young and also in my family introduced these concepts to me that this was possible with God. And so I, just opened my heart like everybody told me to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this works. Like God is real. Like God's here. He wants to be in a relationship with me. And I think for all of my life, that's been really the most fundamental baseline relationship that has influenced the decisions that I've made.
Lovely. And I've heard you say as well, you've done a couple of videos, couple of interviews. You've said before that if you didn't live God's plan for your sexuality, that you would be denying yourself. And I think at first that sounds super, well, first of all, countercultural, but then also maybe counterintuitive for somebody who doesn't know what you're talking about. So can you go into that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like I've been saying, like we've been talking about already, that, fundamentally, I belong to God, right? Like I am his beloved daughter. I don't know. Sometimes when I think about that concept, I think about the baptism of the Lord, right? And how Jesus is going into the waters, and it's the clouds part, right? For the Father to speak that over Jesus. And I think there's so many, just clouds around personal identity, around fulfillment, around life purpose that exists today in the modern world. And so for me, right, like that fundamental calling is to love and be loved by God, a God who has a plan for the world that he made. And me, my person, my body is part of that world that he made. And he has a plan and an intention, a purpose for me that he's had in mind for all of eternity. And so the more that I'm faithful to that plan, the more that I'm authentically myself.
And I guess that's what led you to start up this thing called Eden Invitation, which I absolutely love. And I don't know if you've found this as well, but I feel like sometimes in the church, we can talk so much about the sin of same-sex acts and how important traditional marriage is, which, is very important to talk about. But then sometimes we can forget that there are people, in our church, in our youth groups, in our families, in our friend groups that actually experience these attractions, and they're living out their Catholic faith. And I feel like they can get forgotten, or maybe we don't know how to minister to them. But you've started this thing, Eden Invitation. Can you tell us what it's about? Why did you start it? What does it aim to do?
So Eden Invitation is a movement for young adult Catholics who are experiencing same-sex desires, gender discordant. And I really, started it with my co-founder because we were just having a lot of conversations about exactly what you're talking about, Katie, of like, what do we wish we had, right? Like, why have we stayed Catholic, and what do we wish we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right now, right? And I think one of the things that we were longing for is just community and people to continue walking with, right? To have that support. And to have that support in everyday life, to be called deeper into prayer, to be able to talk about things that maybe other people can't always relate to exactly, to be able to discern callings, right? Like, how am I called in the church? Like sexual ethic, right? We have a really robust theology on sexual ethics. And it tells me in really plain terms what I can't do, which is super important. But a no is not a vocation, right? And I need to know, what is my yes, right? What is my yes to self-gift? What is my yes to, loving fraternal relationships, right? And that's really what Eden Invitation aims to do.
And I love that. I actually noticed that on your website, you talk so much about the yes of giving your life to Christ, because I think so often, and it's a shame that we kind of get this reputation in the Catholic Church. People from the outside, they kind of see this big long list of no's and you can't do that. But that's really not the essence of what being Catholic is. It's actually so much more than that. It's this, this yes to life with Christ that opens up so much freedom and like all this stuff that, people in the world are looking for. They don't realize that it's actually here. It's in the church. Have you found that to be the case? And when you talk to people, does that come up a lot?
I have. I think a lot of times when it comes to same-sex desires, a word that gets used a lot is the cross, right? The cross of same-sex attraction, right? I think really it's the whole Paschal mystery, right? I mean, really for all of us, whatever those hard things are in our life, I think the reality is there's this entirety of the Paschal mystery, right? Like, yes, there is there's always suffering in self-denial, right? That's very real.
Yeah, exactly.
There are things that that just need to be surrendered, right? That need to be laid at the foot of the cross. But there's also like a great joy that comes with that, right? Like if we're surrendering certain things, it actually makes room for new opportunities, for new graces that we never could have imagined otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you emphasize that point so strongly. Something else that comes up a lot with Eden Invitation is the book of Genesis. I noticed you talk a lot about the beginnings. Why do you think that's so important on this issue? Why do we talk about Genesis so much?
Well, because that's the foundation, really, right? I mean, we were talking about the no and the yes, and the no is premised on this really vast foundation of what is the yes. Like, what does it mean to be a human being, right? To be a human person. How is it that God intended us to be, right? In relationship with him, right? That the solitude of our own hearts is meant for him, right? To come into that place, to be in covenant with him, right? That we're meant to be integrated, right? This kind of original integrity, original justice that God wants us to live in harmony, like within ourselves, harmony and fruitful relationship with other people, and to steward the gifts that we have, to steward the world that he's created, right? That he's given to us.
And can you talk to us a little bit more about that personal integration? Because I think that's really key, especially in a world that loves to label people. It's like, no, actually, I'm a lot more than my sexuality. I'm a complicated human being with loads of interests and, a lot more to me than just this one thing, which the world loves to just slap labels on. So why is personal integration so important to what you do at Eden Invitation?
Yeah, I think the truth is, like, the whole of our lives, as you're saying, is complex, right? And that I've received that complex, beautiful, messy life, right, from the hand of God the Father. And so I need to, if I want to live well in this life, if I want to thrive, right, I need to be aware of, like, what are my gifts? What are my strengths? What are my charisms? What are my areas of recurring temptation, right? What are my past wounds? What are my hobbies, right? What are those things that make me come alive, right? All of those things are part of the texture of being human. And so, if you're wrestling with sexuality, with gender, with all of that stuff, I mean, it's important not to deny that, right? There's never a sense of like, tuck that in the closet, so to speak, and don't look at it anymore. I mean, that's for a lot of issues, just problems, right? We can't ignore those things, but to know, like, this is, one of the pieces in the mosaic of my life. And I need to be real about that. But I need to remember it in context, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if someone were to get involved with the Eden Invitation, what could they look forward to? I think I understand that it's mostly a community-based ministry. Like you have your website and you have a lot of links to external resources. You have some of your own videos produced, but it seems to be mostly a community-based ministry. Would that be correct? And what can people find in that?
It is. Yeah. A lot of what we offer isn't just on the website, right? So when people reach out to us, we always offer a call. So a video call, right? Kind of like this. We're on a video conference just to receive your story and see, if you want to continue to get involved. We offer online small groups via book clubs. So we'll be reading a book together for like 6 weeks. It's only 6 weeks, okay? And we also offer retreats. We're starting to grow this year some local chapters, local groups. So obviously tricky in pandemic times, but that's a goal that we're moving towards. And really, so to be able to get engaged, to build a relationship, we have an online community as well, like an online closed forum available to our members. That's incredibly dynamic, just with conversations, and really drilling down in more detail into some of the topics and some of the questions that people have within these experiences. So what you can look forward to really, is formation, right? That is part of it, right? That growth in the context of community and friendship.
Wonderful. And I guess you've spoken to a lot of people at this stage. How long has your ministry been up and running? A couple of years?
Since 2017.
Okay, awesome. And what has it been like having these conversations with people? I imagine you get a lot of kind of heartfelt discussions and you probably made a lot of new friends. And how has that been for you?
It's been really beautiful. I think, I can't tell you how many people come into a call and say something along the lines of, I thought I was the only one, right? Because I think so often we use kind of like us versus them language, or this is an outside cultural experience. In reality, it's for many of us, it's just part of the fallen human condition, right? It's here, and we're here. And so to be able to know that you're not alone, to know that this is definitely not the end of the world, and this actually might be a great means for growth, right? Growth in your relationship with God, an opportunity for this vulnerability and healthy intimacy with other people, and actually might provide the context for just a really fascinating vocational journey too, right? I mean, I would have never imagined that I'm sitting here talking to somebody in Ireland, right, across the world about my life. Right? Just things that God, does more for us than we can ever ask or imagine. And I think that's been really beautiful for me personally through Eid Invitation.
I also find it really interesting that you tend to focus on book clubs. Those, to me, seem to be the thing that you do most regularly. You have your events, of course, but those can't be all the time. Why did you choose book clubs? Like, why is that the thing that you focus on?
Well, I like to read, so part of it.
Oh, because you like it, right?
It's very personal. I think the reason it's really stuck is it just provides a context, right? If you're coming to something for the very first time, you don't know anyone, you don't really open this up with a lot of people, just to sit around and stare at each other and awkwardly discuss your experiences. Like, most people of our generation don't want that. Like, we don't want to do that, right? We want this to be connected, like, to our lives, right? We want this to be in context. And so it really provides a way for us to talk about the spiritual life, right? To look at some like spiritual masters, right? And to talk about the spiritual life, to talk about friendship and community building, to talk about what does it mean to be a lay person in the world, and how is it that our experiences of same-sex desires or gender discordance like kind of rubs against that or provides an opportunity for greater depth with the Lord, right? We can talk about all of that in a greater context, right? This transcends our experience, but it also needs to be integrated back into it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I think, it's good to have something, as you said, we don't want to just sit around and talk about our experiences. That's not something people our age tend to love to do these days. So I think it's nice that you have something else to focus on, to be united in. But then obviously it creates these amazing connections and friendships and provides a space, I think, which is really, really important. So I've also heard you say, and I know Eden Invitation must be a big part of this, but I've heard you say that pastoral care for people who experience same-sex attractions or gender discordance is very much in its infancy across all Christian denominations. So I'm really curious to know, what do you think needs to happen? I mean, obviously, Eden Invitation needs to happen and is happening, but is there anything else related to pastoral care that you think needs to happen?
I think it needs to be broader, right? I think right now, a lot of the focus is on, labels or cultural terms, and that's kind of like the litmus test for like if you're doctrinally orthodox or not, right? And that's a lot of the focus, right? And I think the reality is, while this isn't my identity, it still is an identity question, right? Like, it's if I'm made in the image and likeness of a God who is love, right? Then these wrestlings with love and with my person they run pretty deep, right? And they affect a lot of the areas of my life. And that's one of the reasons why at Eid Invitation, we're really trying to do this kind of whole person formation, to recognize that, okay, actually this affects the way I'm relating to other people. This affects the way that I see myself. This affects the way I see my future, whether or not I have hope for my future, right? And so I think that those areas of formation really need to be holistic, right? To move in that direction of saying, okay, we see this, we have this great, robust apologetics around the church's teaching. We've got that down. Okay, we've got it down. But now, how do we care for people in the whole of their life?
Yeah. Absolutely. And is there anything that people not experiencing these same-sex attractions or gender discordance who want to be supportive can do through Eden Invitation or anything else? Is there anything you recommend? Is it learning more? I mean, I think we've covered that. That's, we've done a lot of that. There's a lot of debate and discussion on this topic already. But is there anything, practically speaking, that other people can do to be supportive of what you're doing or other initiatives in the church like this?
Absolutely. I think for, us personally, the work of Eden Invitation, I mean, you can please pray for us. You can subscribe on our website to get updates. You can, give to support our mission. We can only, we're still growing. We're still in our infancy in a lot of ways, or I guess maybe we're toddlers now. So to support that. But I think, with people in your own lives, to be present, right? To recognize, for those friends and family members that experience this that are outside the church, don't make it their identity either, right? Remember that they are a whole complex person. And so don't let this aspect of their life drastically change the way that you interact with them, right? Because then we're kind of speaking out of both sides of our mouth about what our identity is, right? So making sure to be present for people, right? In their lives, for people that are experiencing this in the church, ask them, right? That's a great thing too. Ask them, hey, how can I support you in this? Right? How can I be present to you? If you're watching this and you're married, remember your single friends that have this experience, right? Invite them into your family, to your home. Just be that love, be that community right where you are.
Wonderful words. Thank you so much, Anna. And just finally, where can we find Eden Invitation? What's the website? What's the handle? Where are you at?
So it's www.edeninvitation.com. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram with that same name, Eden Invitation.
Perfect.
And YouTube.
Perfect.
You can find us on YouTube.
Thank you so much for your time. And YouTube. You're on everything. So basically, type in Eden Invitation. We'll find you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, Katie.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today. That was Anna Carter here on Shalom Worlds Found. Until we see you next time, take care.
At the end of Mass, we are told to go out and bring the gospel into our lives and witness to the gospel by everything that we say and do. It's so important that we are all out there bringing the joy of the gospel to everyone we know. And that's why I'm so pleased to endorse and offer my blessing to Shalom World TV for all that you are doing to bring good news into this world which is often sad and dark and in need of a message of hope. Thank you for what you're doing. May God bless your work always.